Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Bob's Live, our weekly show right here on the internet. And well, this week I have a little bit of a short episode for us because if you look outside, it's a little bit damp out today, so I couldn't really get outside to do any gardening activities. And also, there's not a lot going on right now in the greenhouse. We're kind of in that dip between seasons. But as I mentioned, it's a little wet out, and also it is a little bit chilly. So, unfortunately for us here in the Mid Ohio Valley, we are looking at potentially the first frosts and freezing weather of the season tonight. So, it's kind of more or less the ending of the gardening season. Um, of course, in tonight's episode, I want to cover some basic things that you can do to bring a little bit of your garden indoors, and also what you need to do to prepare for cold weather. And also, we are going to be having some warmer temperatures later in the week. So you might be able to nurse some plants through to preserve them for maybe the next little bits of warm weather that we have. So up first, let's dig right into the weather forecast. And of course, I kind of made this prediction last week in the Keep Growing podcast when I said, we have some cold weather this week. But I think next week is going to be our first frost of the season. And what I'm doing right now is normally our podcast goes out every week during the growing season to cover gardening tasks. But since we're heading into winter and there's not a lot of gardening to do right now, our podcast is going to go out once monthly with gardening tasks. And then we also might mix in some interviews in there later on this winter. So keep an eye out for the Keep Growing podcast. And if you do listen to podcasts, go out and subscribe to it. I try to keep the gardening task episodes down around the 5 to 10 minute mark. I like short little podcasts that I can listen to while I'm working on something. And the Keep Growing podcast, I kind of geared it toward that. And it's available on all the major podcast networks. So it's on Spotify. That's actually where we host it. Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, formerly Google Podcast, which they rolled it over into YouTube. So it's now YouTube. And it shows up right on our YouTube channel. You can listen to our podcast there. And then we're also on iHeartRadio. So you can find the Keep Growing podcast there also. But yeah, getting into the weather, and I just refreshed the weather app here on my desktop a second ago, and the temperature dropped. It was showing 49, and now we're down to 47. And it is going to be chilly tonight. So we're looking, right now the dew point's at 39 degrees. But tonight, let me see if I can pull up. I always get lost. They've changed the weather app a little bit. So we're going to get down to around 36 degrees tonight. That's about the coldest that it's going to be. And that's going to be like first thing in the morning. So we're kind of here in Mason, right on that borderline of frost. And here in the valley, we get the benefit of the Ohio River. It acts as a heat sink and it releases heat this time of year out into the valley and protects the river valley. So we tend to have frost a little bit later than if you just drive a couple miles out in the country away from the river valley. So out away from the rivers, like the Kanawha and the Ohio, out in the valleys and the countryside, you're probably going to have frost tonight. And if you live over in southeastern Ohio, they're actually saying more instead of frost, more freeze tonight. So it's going to be colder the further west you go. Um, and if we take a look at the temperatures, here we go. So yeah, we've got cold weather tonight, tomorrow night, and the next night. And then we're going to start to warm back up heading into the weekend. So Saturday we're looking at 72 and sunny, and then Sunday 74. So we're going to have a little warm back up, and then next week is looking kind of back in the 70s again. So that's kind of our, our little sneaky last little bit of summer that kind of comes in and taunts us in mid to late October every year. But yeah, if we take a look at the alerts right now, the light blue area, that is frost advisories. And then the dark blue is freeze warnings. So that's what we're looking at right now in the area. So again, if you live outside of the river valley, and also it depends how far north or south you are, you're probably looking at either a frost or freeze tonight. And again, here in Mason, kind of south, we're kind of right on that borderline if you live in the river valley. So I would say probably down at my house in Apple Grove, down below Point Pleasant, probably not going to have frost in the morning. Fingers crossed. But yeah, something that we do, let me jump over to our website now. Over on our website at bobsmarket.com, anytime there is a frost or freeze warning, I'll put a little banner up at the top of the website, and I have to kind of look straight up here because this monitor's up over my head. I normally stand at my desk, so but anyhow, if you click on that, it takes you over to Uncle Jim's Almanac Weather Center. And if we have any weather alerts for the Mid-Ohio Valley, I will post them here, and then I always link back to the National Weather Service website exactly where those alerts are, so that way you can go find the ones specific for your area. But always on this web page, we have this little doohickey down here, and it's got a really helpful weather map and then also a long-term forecast embedded. So that's just sort of general for the Mid-Ohio Valley. And you find it up here at the top of our website, or there's a little slide out menu if you're on a phone, but it's under the Resources tab. So we have Educational Outreach, Going Green, and then Weather Center. The Resources tab is kind of the tab where I stick stuff that I don't really know where it should go on the rest of the website. And then also under the How-To section, we have Uncle Jim's Almanac. And there you can find all of the Almanac posts, and there's also a link to the Weather Center right there on the Almanac page. So if we take a look at October's Almanac, we have our chart of moon phases up here. And then right now we are in week 42. And there's a whole list of things that you can be doing right here, which one of those is mowing for the last time. And yeah, right now, once we get a frost, the grass kind of goes dormant. And, that means that, hey, it's time to put your mower up, get it ready for winter. Something that I like to do is sharpen the blades and kind of oil them so that way they don't rust during the winter. Also change the oil in your mower, and then fill up the tank and add in some sort of fuel stabilizer to get through the winter. And then I also hook up the battery to a trickle charger. If you don't have a trickle charger, something that I used to do before I had one, I would go out like once a month and start up the lawnmower, let it run for like 5 minutes or so, just to kind of top off the charge on the battery. But that kind of gets me into the next thing that I wanted to talk about tonight. And let me jump back to our homepage because I can just pull up the article. And that is preparing your garden for winter. So over on our website right now, we have preparing your garden for winter. And this blog post, it is a great one to look at because it kind of jumps through bullet points. But then I also backlinked older blog posts that go into more depth on different topics. So I have like harvest remaining crops and then a link to preparing garden beds for winter. And then amend the soil and mulching. And then I have a link to an article about fall cover crops. And then protecting your plants, watering, maintenance, winterizing garden tools is another one that I linked to. Planting fall bulbs, I linked to that. And then review and plan, so I linked to garden planning. And then also taking care of wildlife heading into the winter. And we cover some birding basics. So this blog post is a great jumping off point for different topics. So right now, things that you can be doing is, cleaning out your garden beds and prepping them for winter, laying down a fresh layer of mulch. Also mending your soil. This is also an excellent time of the year to do a soil test. And we've covered previously on Bob's Live and on our website how to go about doing a soil test, and you can actually send out a soil sample to the state extension office and they'll test it for you and give you the results back. And that's something I'm probably going to hit on again here on Bob's Live in the next few weeks because I need to do it for my own garden beds again. And then I talked about winterizing your lawnmower. Another important thing to think about is water. If you have fountains or anything like that, you need to make sure that you drain them. Make sure there's no water in the pumps. The same thing goes for garden hoses. Make sure they're cleaned out. Different things that I've forgot about in the past. Pressure washer. You want to make sure that you get all of the water out of a pressure washer if you have it. I have one that I forgot about one year. It froze. Completely destroyed it. So those are all things that you need to think about right now with freezing temperatures. Something that we had to do here at Bob's back in the day, before we switched up the types of drip tubing we used, is our big 5-acre mum field uptown. We had to completely disassemble it and label everything in the fall to keep it from freezing. Now we use a tubing that we can actually recycle and then just put out new tubing every year. Yeah, Patty says there's freeze warning in the Chicago suburbs tonight. Yeah, definitely up there. A lot farther north than us. So they definitely get the freezing temperatures early on. Well, anyhow, I think I've covered just about everything. Again, if you head over to our website at bobsmarket.com, there I've got our freeze warnings. That article, it's right here on the homepage, preparing your garden for winter. And then down here we've got older episodes of Bob's Live. Something that I forgot to mention is the weather alert, the frost advisory. If you want to get those by email, under the how-to section, if you go down to subscribe, that pulls up a form where you can enter your email address, and then we send out those alerts by email. And then also over on our Facebook page, we have a new direct messaging thing where we can send out messages basically to all of our followers at once. It's called the Market Bulletin. Uh, some of you might get that joke. um, but basically, if we have like a freeze warning or something like that, I'll post a message there. It goes directly to your Facebook Messenger inbox. I try not to spam it too often because you get a notification, and I don't want to seem spammy with it. But yeah, I'll send out notifications through it also. And well, that is all that I have for this week's episode of Bob's Live. Um, I should have looked up. Let me find my mouse here. I've lost it. I should have looked up what I have planned for next week. In the meantime, does anyone watching have any questions? So we're kind of here at the end of the episode. Oh, yeah. So next week, yes, I do have fall soil tests. So next week, we're going to be talking about collecting soil samples for your garden and getting your soil tested. Um, so yeah, that's what we're going to be looking at next week, and then the week after that is Halloween. So we're going to be doing something fun here for Halloween. And well, that is all that I have for this week's episode of Bob's Live. So until next time, keep growing. Oh, where is it? There it is.